this is another thing that came from the early days of newspapers, is you had to extract yourself from the news. You're there as an impartial observer, right? But now the news is all about, here I am, there's stuff happening, you know, with your phone, and look, this is, but I'm the focus of your attention, but look what's going on. And that to me is absolute opposite of what we used to do.
Yeah. It's moved a lot. I mean, I was looking at some stats, and in 1995, there were 60 million newspapers printed a day in the US. In 2022, there was only 20 million printed.
Still that many though.
Yeah, but it was a 10% decline from 2021. So in a year, it had gone down. Interestingly enough, the amount of people also found some stats around digital news websites, and there's actually been a 10% decline in visits to digital news websites from 2020 to 2022. Right. So my question here is, we have, obviously with social media as well, we have a really changed and fast changing landscape of how we consume news. So what is the role, you might have some rude thoughts about this, but what is the role of the modern journalist? Because there's an argument to say that, as what you said, like, everyone has the ability to report on something with this device in their hand.
Yeah, I don't think that this is necessarily a bad way of presenting stuff that's happening, right? We've always had in the visual news snippets supplied by someone with a camcorder or stuff that shows you what happened. I think this is a valid way of talking about news, I guess. The role of the journo is still the same. It still should be the same. The thing, you know, you still got to get the truth across, and whatever version of the truth you decide or you present. I think there's a responsibility for the journo to make sure that still comes across as unbiased, right? And we've seen it with recent news that, and I don't want to dive into this too much, but there is definitely a media slant. There's a slant to the way things are reported. And, you know, we've seen the same situation reported two different ways. Because the thought process, to my mind, is that we need the outside world to see this how we want them to see it. So where do you find the truth, right? If there's two polar opposite ways of viewing the same thing, even if one of those is the truth, like honest, unfiltered truth, you still take this other view into account. So I think that's the trick, and that's balanced by the commercial interests of the news organization that you're working with. So if something is shocking, like 7 people die in car crash, then that kind of sells itself, right? But if it's something that you've had to hype to sell the newspaper, and in doing so have misrepresented the truth or slanted the truth to sell newspapers, and I think that's a bit rough. It's not. You must go to bed at night feeling dirty about what you've done.
I mean, there was the big sort of scandal about Facebook and ads and the American elections and manipulation, which it's wrong.
Absolutely, yeah.
And it's the same thing. But is that humanity playing out, that certain humans will do things that you and I would think is unethical or immoral for their own personal and financial gain?
Well, I'll hit that a different way. It was discovered through investigative journalism, right? So had there not been some switched on people digging around, you would not know about it. So I'm glad it got found out. I'm glad there were people willing to put their lives on the line or their reputations on the line, or however you want to present that. Because it's scary. Like, investigative journalism that digs at some of this big stuff, it's scary. Like, it does not sit well with me. I couldn't do it.
Well, I mean, recently, Tucker Carlson going and interviewing Putin, like, he must have been shitting himself.
Yeah. I mean, but even taking on big business, right?
Yeah.
You know, the guys, these guys that are willing to, like, go back to the Woodward and Bernstein days of Watergate. They took on the government. They took on the president. How scary is that? Like, even if you're 100% correct, the fact is that that man was pretty powerful, right? That position is...
Yeah, but what's freedom of speech?
Well, but there were some pretty dire consequences for even putting your head above the parapet, right? To like, it's an easier life just to sit there and go, oh, this is a bit crap. We've got all this stuff here. But someone had to actually put their name on a byline, and, like, you know, I just don't know. There's a couple of guys, and one in particular here that does it extremely well, and I take my hat off to him, because it takes some balls to tackle people. So, you know, it's I'm glad it happens. I'm glad it's still there, because it'd be tempting to think that it'd be easy to squash this power of free speech kind of thing. But it's still happening, which is great.